from our chefs, Chef Sam Brown and Chef Hollis Thomas, both well-respected chefs here in Indianapolis. Chef Thomas, retired educator turned chef, and he, just really passionate about sharing healthy food and cooking with the Indianapolis community. And we also have Chef Sam Brown with us. He is at the Wheeler Mission, and he is also a passionate educator. And our co-presenters, sponsors for the evening is the American Dairy Association of Indiana. And you'll be hearing from two of their registered dietitians this evening with some of the health information. So I'm going to kick this over to my colleague, Ollie Conley, to get us going.
Janet, thank you very much. So I have the privilege and the pleasure of being live here at the Dairy Barn with the American Dairy Association of Indiana and both Chef Brown and Thomas. So thanks everybody for participating. I don't want to get in too much of their way because they have so much stuff prepared. We just want to make sure we talk about, first and foremost, celebrating Black culture and Black food. Also, it's American Part Month. We also need to make sure that we always stay conscious of that. A lot of these recipes, a lot of this conversation will be about healthy eating, in addition to flavorful eating. And then both chefs have brought some of their own stories and inspirations that they've seen in their journey throughout their careers. So it's going to be a fun hour and get started with that step.
Good evening. I'm Chef Hollis Thomas, and we are delighted to be here, Chef Brown and I, to talk about African-American history and the contributions of Black chefs, as well as the influence that African culture and the African region of the world has had on foods. I'd like to begin with this symbol. This is the Sankofa bird, which is from the western part of Africa. It's a bird that has the egg in its mouth, and the symbol reminds us to always look to the past, never forget it, and what you have gained from the past and those things that were invested in you. So in the spirit of Sankofa, we want to look to the past and talk just a little bit about the influence and, again, the contributions, because in many of the cookbooks, as well as television shows and other things that you see, people of color are omitted. And since the beginning of time, people of color have served in service capacities as well as cooks and don't get nearly as much credit as they need. So for your pleasure this evening, we've got some books on some of the well-known cooks and chefs from the African-American community. Marcus Samuelson is one. He is from Sweden, but he is Ethiopian by birth. We've got also Leah Chase, who had one of the most famous restaurants, Dookie Chase, prior to her passing. It's still a legacy there. We've got Sweetie Pie from St. Louis, Missouri, who used to be a singer for Ike and Tina Turner and lost her voice and ended up making money and built an empire based on her cooking. This young man has authored his own book called Notes of Black Chef, Kwame Owachia. All of these are the Indianapolis Public Library. Sonny Chase, I could go on, but we are delighted that we're going to be able to talk about heart healthy foods, and the featured piece is carrots this year. My colleague, Chef Sam Brown, is going to begin with one of the recipes that we have over here. We hope that you'll like it as you look at the eye candy that we have down here.
Good evening, everyone. So first of all, Chef Hollis and I are excited to be here, and we want to give a big thanks and a big shout out to the Indianapolis Urban League, as well as the Dairy Association for having us here tonight. We hope that we can show you a few recipes that you can use that are heart healthy and that you can use with a very common ingredient, which is the carrot. Very good root vegetable that you can use for a variety of different applications. But tonight we're going to show you something that's very basic, very simple, but sustainable, and that is going to be cream of carrot soup. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by preparing this soup using the carrot. And one of the first things I want to show, because I have had the opportunity to teach at Ivy Tech and a variety of other organizations like Second Helpings, is how many people just don't know how to use the vegetable peeler. The vegetable peeler actually has two blades so that you can go in two different directions at the same time. So you can peel the vegetable, rotate it, and go up and down at the same time. Make sure also that you wash your vegetables, because we know all vegetables can have some items in it that might make you sick if you don't make sure that they're totally clean. So that's the carrot. So to make this particular soup, one of the tips that I want to show you is that to give your food great flavor, even something simple and basic like carrots, one of the things you want to do, Chef Hollis, if you could help me out here, we're just going to put a little bit here, is go ahead and bloom your herbs before you start the cooking process. So we're going to put a little bit of cardamom. Cardamom is a spice that is very flavorful. It's normally used in a lot of different global cuisines. So you notice that you can come in a little bit. You'll notice that it's starting to bloom a little bit. We want to put just a little bit of crushed red pepper in there. And then we want to put just a little bit of cumin.
And as Chef Brown has said, by blooming your spices, it gives your dish much more flavor early on. Many of us wait until we put it on just prior to or even during the cooking process. You want that whole thing?
And then this is a little coriander. We're putting a little coriander in there. By doing this, you're going to give the food more flavor. And what you're going to find out is that you will be able to reduce the amount of salt that is in your food. So next, we're going to go ahead and stir that up. And you guys can't smell this because we live in a virtual world right now, but there's just lots of aromatics that are coming out of there. And it smells really good right now. All
Hey,
right.
Chef.
And in cooking, what we want to do is try to build levels of flavor. So we start off by putting our spices in. The next thing we're going to do is add some onions. And another tip that I learned from a good colleague of mine is no cold food in cold skillets. So we want to make sure that those skillets are really warmed up, not too much, but warmed up before we add any vegetables or any type of proteins into the skillets. And then the next thing we want to do is go ahead and add the carrots. These are just regular, fresh, sliced carrots that we're going to add. Sure, blooming is just a cooking technique or process to really release the natural oils that are inside of those spices into the dish before we actually start the cooking process or add the food to it, as opposed to putting it in at the end. And then we're trying to we're guaranteed that we get a lot of flavor and balance into the dish. Okay.
And in the spirit of our theme, Heart Healthy, I want to piggyback on what Chef Brown said. By blooming with the spices early on in the hot oils, then you decrease the need to put too much salt. Many times African Americans, as well as other individuals, have problems with salt intake, high blood pressure, and different things. This will be a way to decrease that naturally and increase the flavor in your food.
Okay. Another thing we're going to do, a lot of times we like to use flour and we like to use other things as a thickening agent in our food, starches, things like that. What I have here is some Yukon Gold potatoes. So to make this sustainable, because sometimes when you make soups, you might be hungry an hour or so later, we're going to add some Yukon Gold potatoes to it that we par cooked just for the sake of time.
That looks very good.
And now what we're going to do, because this is one of those things, we're living in a COVID world and a COVID environment now. And we're very grateful for organizations, by the way, like the Urban League, who really stepped it up because lots of people are dealing with food insecurity right now. Once we get this in, this is going to be a very basic and easy dish. I'm adding chicken broth. This is, you can either use chicken bouillon cubes if you want, which is totally fine.
But keep in mind, you're increasing the salt intake if you use bouillon versus trying to go as naturally as you can.
Exactly. What the ideal scenario would be, you know, if to have a whole chicken and then cook the chicken and use the broth that comes out of the chicken for this. But if you're in a situation where you just absolutely can't make that happen, it's okay to use the canned broth that you can get, 8 to 12 ounce cans, or you can use the Swanson chicken broth and chicken stock in the box. Whatever it takes, it all works out really well. And then what you want to do is go ahead and try to bring this to a simmer. Okay.
And Chef, I can attend to that while you look at.
And last but not least, how about a little garlic?
Garlic is always
Good.
good.
Right.
And garlic adds to the health processes. Garlic is one of the natural spices as well as ingredients that you can use to help lower blood pressure, as well as it enhances the flavor in your food.
All right. Now we're going to put a little lid over this and let it go ahead and cook until all the vegetables are soft.
Okay. All right. In the spirit of Black History Month also, we want to highlight particularly and do an homage to Black female chefs in particular, as well as some of the other women in the industry that have not gotten their just due. We have a lot of food shows, but what do you see? Men, 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 particularly of European persuasion. And that's not a bad thing, but it's just that people of color have been cooking again. And even from the beginning of Blacks being brought to this country, many of those, even during the slave trade era, brought spices and the seeds from ingredients and things that we use and enjoy now. Okra, as well as yams. They brought them in fabrics and garments that they ended up using to plant. So throughout the South, as well as in the homes, in the Southern homes, and many of these people ended up going to Europe and ended up cooking for some of the most well-to-do and wealthy families. So you've got the French that have really, really been the beneficiaries. We think of New Orleans and some of those with the Cajun cuisine, but guess what? It came as a result of the African influence. And when the Africans were taken to regions that they had no idea where they were going, they infused their culture with those cultures. And there we have Southern cooking. People talk about soul food, but soul food is just a spin-off of a variety of different foods. Chef Brown?
Okay. So a question was asked while Chef Thomas was doing his presentation about fat. So one of the things that you're going to learn about, and that I've learned over the 20 plus years that I've been in the food service industry, both Chef Hollis Thomas and myself are members of the American Culinary Federation of Greater Indianapolis, is learning how to execute your recipes using 4 basic ingredients. One is acid, the other one is fat, the other one is sugar, and then the last one is salt. So when you learn how to use those ingredients, it will help you tremendously when it comes to heart-healthy diets. Now, someone asked about fat. As you know, there's many types. Today, I chose to use olive oil because it is the healthier of all the different types of fat, and only enough to cover the bottom of the pan. We're not pan frying, we're not deep frying. All I needed was enough oil to saute the vegetables, to get them to begin to release their flavor, to bloom the herbs. And then after I got the cooking process started, then we allowed the chicken broth to do the rest of the work. So very little. I don't want to say 1 tablespoon or whatever, because it depends on the size vessel that you're using. but all you need is enough to cover or coat the bottom of the pan. That's it.
Speaking of covering, that's a good segue. I've got a food plate here, and I'd like for us to focus on that for a minute. Many of us, including myself, I enjoy food. Food is one of my greatest friends, but it also can become one of your greatest enemies if you're not careful with regard to your portion sizes, as well as what you use to season it with. And I have this plate just as a visual because this inside of the plate, inside the rim, is the amount for healthy eating that one should have in their food for intake. If you look, you see that half of the plate is vegetables and fruit. Every plate should be half of that. A quarter of your plate should be proteins, as well as those things that are, if you use food, plant-based diets, then they've got the whole grains. And usually that's not much bigger than the palm of your hand. I have a large hand and I have a tendency to like large portions. And what happens is we end up wearing it later. And I should point out that during the pandemic, many of us have probably gone to the refrigerator, and some people have said they've worn a hole in their carpet and their tile going to and from the refrigerator. You have to substitute that action with exercise and or a change in mindset. So do what you can to promote healthy eating, and so that once this pandemic is over, we'll be able to fit into those nice tailor-made and designer things that we had. And I'm going to be working on it as well, folks. You're not alone.
So I've had an opportunity to work with many fantastic chefs, both male and female, around the country and around the world. And one of the biggest mistakes that most home cooks make is that they simply just don't taste the food enough. So I think I'm about halfway through the cooking process right now. I want to go ahead and taste. Tastes good. Okay, so at this point, I'm just going to let this go ahead and cook. But I want to show you a few other recipes, and you can feel free to contact me through the Urban League or through the Dairy Association. But just in the sake of Black History Month, we made some soul food chicken wings. I got this chicken wing recipe because I looked in a cookbook and did a little research, and I found out that the Tuskegee Airmen, when in 1942, when they were going through their flights, when they came back to the Officers Club, they would eat these very spicy, very flavorful wings. So I made that recipe today. This is my famous 6 cheese mac and cheese. So for those at the dairy, lots of cheese. And also I started off with the basic bechamel sauce. So using lots of milk and heavy cream. Bechamel is a basic cream-based sauce using cream, heavy cream, and a white roux. And then after that, and a roux is flour, 50% flour, 50% fat. And you incorporate it and then add the milk. And then from that, I added heavy cream and made the cheese sauce. And then we made the mac and cheese. I also made some collard greens back during the slavery times. They called collard greens the survival leaf. And so often the slaves would grab these leaves from that grew wild and take it into the field, and they would get meat from the smokehouse and just cook it, the pork, with the greens in water all day, and it was very flavorful. And now we do the same thing, except to be a little bit more heart healthy. Instead of using the pork, which has a higher fat content, I use smoked turkey tails. And the smoked turkey tails still give me that same level of smoke flavor, except it's a lot less fat, which in turns means a healthier diet. And then we have some cornbread, which is a staple with collard greens. You can't have collard greens and not have cornbread. So I have some cornbread here. And then I made some candied yams or candied sweet potatoes. And then one of my favorite things to make is oxtails. And so I braised, slow cooked some oxtails and a little bit of just beef broth and some what we call in classical French mirepoix, which is celery, carrots, and onions. Added just a little bit of diced tomatoes because I needed the acidity in order to make them nice and tender. So just a few items that are common items. Is there an ox in an oxtail? Yes, the oxtail is really the ox's tail that has been cut down into smaller pieces. And it's very flavorful, very gelatinous, lots of gelatin, and it is really good for you. And you can, all of these ingredients you can find in any of our local stores right here in the Indianapolis market. Okay.
Chef, I mean, first, wow, that looks amazing. I'm a native Hoosier, but I've been able to spend a lot of time in South Louisiana. I've even had the pleasure of going to Dookie Chase, and so it looks just like that right now. But I did have a question before you segued into that about how often you taste your food. So I know that's a huge mistake for me as a home chef. And then I find it's a competition with myself that if it's not good enough, I should do this, or I should keep trying that, or maybe I don't have a good plan on what I'm wanting to finish with anyway. So what am I tasting for? Can you kind of give me a couple tips on that?
Let me jump in for a minute. First of all, it's like wine or beverages or anything. You have to train your palate. And many of us are so unaccustomed to, we don't eat the same things often enough to get a universal taste or type of feel for what we should have. So train your palate, number one. Number two is don't just rely on your own tasting. I know that Chef Sam is a wonderful certified tasting chef, but I'm going to be the backup taster right here. And you know, you should do this even at home. And that's one of the ways that your grandmother, aunts, uncles, and others, they had people. I was a taster in my house, and they began to, that's delicious. It has flavor, it's robust. High five. But one of the reasons that I said that, and back to your point, don't just trust your own taste or palate. One of the reasons that restaurants run out of business is people from that come in as patrons want things to taste like Aunt Becky or Aunt Big Mama, and it's not Big Mama's restaurant. It's not your Aunt Gladys's restaurant. And it's a fickle industry, and it can survive, but during the pandemic, I should add that right now, the hospitality industry is really working overtime at trying to make a comeback and surviving. And it's my hope and my prayer that many of the businesses that have struggled are and will be coming back. I know they're having to reinvent themselves and do things. And I'm glad that the government as well as the public are being patient and supporting them.
Thank you. So, and to piggyback off what he said, always remember this: cooking is an expression of yourself. So personally, as a professional chef, and professionally, I don't eat food that is really spicy because it tends to linger on my palate, and I have to taste a variety of different foods throughout the day. And so, and I just wasn't raised on that. So I don't eat a lot of that. But what the recipe is only a guideline to the final product. So if you want to, make it a little bit more spicy or add some other ingredients, feel free to do so. Again, what he said, I agree with. When chefs are making dishes, whether we're in the restaurant, whether we're at home feeding our family, we're trying to create memories, right? So you make it the best way that you know how to make it, and you taste it often so that you have the opportunity to make those adjustments during the cooking process. However, I will share this with you. Salt as well as pepper should always be added toward the end of the cooking process. If you add salt and pepper at the beginning of the cooking process, during the cooking process, those flavors get more concentrated, and you'll wonder why your food was salty because you didn't add a lot of salt to it. The problem is that you added the salt at the wrong time. So while this dish was cooking for an hour, that salt got more concentrated as the liquid started to evaporate. And so now you want to know why it's so salty. Or the other thing you could have possibly done was prevent that if you were tasting during the cooking process, you would have known, wait a minute, this is getting way too salty. Do I add more liquid now to try to dilute it? Do I add cream? What do I do to try to fix it before it's totally something that's not going to be very pleasant to eat? So that's why cooking food and tasting your food is very important. Wait till the end, because you might get to the end and find out, guess what? It's perfect. I don't need any more salt. I don't need any more sugar. I don't need any more acid. But you'll never know that unless you taste the food as you're going.
And when we're trying to develop our palate, is it a matter of consistency and timing? Should we be preparing the same dishes with the same ingredients, or maybe slightly different, so we can, taste that difference and develop it? Or what are some tips and tricks that you guys think
I would
might
tell
work
you
for
to be
that?
brave and try some new things. That's what most people are pretty much stuck into the recipes that they've grown up with and have eaten their entire life. And there's an entire world of flavors out there. So don't be afraid to try cardamom or coriander or tarragon or some of these other flavor profiles. I didn't grow up eating that kind of stuff either on the south side of Chicago, but as I started to venture out and try different types of food, and that's another thing, going back to what he said, try different restaurants that offer different types of cuisine. And then you'll be wondering, well, what is in it that makes it taste different from what I cook? And that's how you start to develop your palate. Okay.
And I owe a debt of gratitude to my late mother, who was one of my first and best teachers. I was born in Columbus, Georgia, and they migrated to Indiana. And my mother was a wonderful cook. I'm number 6 of 8 children. And I thought that everybody cooked like they did. And when we were in East Chicago, Indiana, she began to prepare dishes, tacos. So I didn't see anybody else cook. So I thought my mother was the best taco maker. And what I didn't know and learn was she made friends with the Hungarian women, the Hispanic women, and some of the women from other races and cultures, and they shared recipes. So the Hungarian women went home doing smothered chicken like she had learned in the South. And another plug is that I don't know how many of you have seen this Bridgerton series that is on. Shonda Rhimes is going all the way to the bank. I've seen it, but people think it's make-believe or made up. Again, if you look, this is very authentic, where people of color have been. England has had a black queen, Queen Charlotte, and these people were wealthy people that had cooks and servants, and they were doing some world famous recipes, the mother sauces, the wines, and what have you. So we want people to know that, first of all, that's not make-believe, and people that look like you, I, and everybody else in the room have been living well and eating well for a long time. And it's just a fairy tale that people only eat one type of food. Because we are doing Black History Month, I want to share a gift that I received and pay homage to my friends, Reverend and Reverend Smith, who gave me this chef's apron that happens to feature people of color as chefs, women and men. And you don't see items very often. Even when you see chef figurines, you usually see somebody that looks like Graham Kerr or either some of the other chefs that are here. What's the one that barks at everybody or yells at them? What's the chef?
Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay. All right, Gordon Ramsay. Not giving Gordon a plug up in here, but again, you see that. Some of those things are unrealistic. People can't learn under that kind of pressure and that kind of a beatdown. I put it like that. So I encourage you to think about getting in, Ali, again, trying. If you want to have a sampling party once the pandemic is over, Chef Sam and I, give us a call. Michelle Plummer will be willing to come over, I'm sure, and help us lead the way. How are we doing over here, Chef?
All right, so the cream of carrot soup is actually what we call a puree soup. It's a broth-based soup, so it doesn't have any type of gluten or any type of roux or anything like that in it. It's a broth-based soup, but it's a pureed soup because at the end of the cooking process, which is where we are now, you're going to add the vegetables and some of the broth, and we're going to puree it inside of a food processor, or you can use an immersion blender. So I'm just going to grab some of these vegetables.
Let me hold that pan up for you so you can get that on the corner.
And we're going to use the whole team effort here and pour this in here like so. And normally, after it's done, we're gonna pour it in the bowl. We would add heavy cream as a liaison. But here's part of the issue with heavy cream, which is one of my best friends. Is that it's either 36% fat or 40% fat. And
Oh
so
my goodness.
here we go with, is that really heart healthy? In moderation, maybe, but not something you want to be using all the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to substitute with yogurt as our garnish tonight. We open it. Oh, that looks good. Okay. I like what I'm seeing here. Okay. And now.
And if you're going to try to make the hot soups, please don't try to use just a traditional home blender that is made out of glass. It's too hot sometimes and it could end up exploding or breaking on you. So their immersion blender.
Now, Hannah, I saw
Start out with the
some.
right equipment.
My apologies, Chef. Hannah, I saw some great comments in the chat room about some of the nutrition benefits of what we've been seeing and talking through so far. Did you want to pop in a little bit of that information for us, please?
Chef Brown.
I feel like I'm
Sure,
not
you just
even
want to, you know,
these chefs are on
we're-
it tonight.
first of all, I want to acknowledge. Oh, Henderson. Okay.
I was just saying, I don't even know if I'm needed. The chefs are really on it tonight. I love the fact that they're looking at Greek yogurt as this garnish, but I will say that since they were
She's
just
got her
talking
thumb
about a
up over there.
garnish, if you wanted to use a little bit of sour cream or something else, it's just a little bit. And if that's what your preference is, you go right ahead. No problem there. But I love that there's going to be good fiber in this, and just all the discussion they've had about how to use herbs and be able to lower the sodium content for heart health is just fantastic. I hope we get a chance to have all these recipes out online so that everybody can see them in case they missed any of the handouts that were out before.
Do your carrots with the chermoula.
Okay.
Yes, do the carrots with the chermoula.
We are deciding on recipes and sequence up in here, but this is looking very good. Chef, you want to show them that finished product right
Sure,
there?
absolutely. It's easy, it's simple, it's nutritionally balanced. And if you wanted to have 1 4-ounce oven roasted chicken breast alongside of it, that's boneless, skinless, that wouldn't hurt anything at all. Okay, so for you guys to say, well, where's the meat or where's the protein? I would be happy with serving that with, like I said, just 1. And again, nutritionally, that chicken breast is not supposed to be bigger than my fist. All right. So not an 8-ounce chicken breast, not a bucket of chicken, 1 4-ounce boneless, skinless chicken breast alongside of that with maybe 1 slice of whole grain, especially a 7-grain bread would be, or roll would be fantastic and very healthy. Okay.
And we do know that moderation is the name of the game, and it doesn't happen all at once. You have to do it. I'm standing in front of a gentleman right now who is devoted to fitness. And so we are holding our breaths because he has been going to the gym and working at it very hard. So, and as chefs, you have a tendency to not pay as much attention to your own fitness. You're so busy trying to prepare food and make it nice and presentable. To Ali's point in question, we eat with our eyes. And so the way that you present food is another thing that it will enhance the taste, believe it or not. If food is just kind of dropped on there and no sequence, look at this. Look at how much more attractive this is. And when you go to a restaurant, that's what you're looking at. I challenge and encourage people to start doing that for themselves at home. My wife and I still set the table, even though we're empty nesters and have been for some years, because we enjoy the dining experience. Not only that, but it's a way to have you enhance your communication and just your dining experience. Chef?
Okay. All right, so going over to the second menu, still with carrots.
Oh, these.
So as you noticed, remember there was that question earlier about exactly how much we should use with regard to oil. So you see here, I've got maybe, I don't know what, 2 tablespoons of oil, but since I reduced the level of oil, I'm going to add 1. Let me say that again, 1 tablespoon of butter. All right, why? Because the butter is going to enhance the flavor. Okay, but the disadvantage to the butter is that what? It breaks down fast and it burns fast. So if I put the oil in there first and then put the butter in there and allow the butter to melt, then I'll get more flavor from the butter. All right. So what we're making now is called carrot fries. All right. So just like we eat fries with potatoes, which can become a problem for those who are diabetic and those who are counting their carbs, we're going to get much more nutritional value out of the carrot. So we put the carrot in. I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit of the crushed pepper in.
He's
just
blooming
like
it again. He's blooming.
Here we go with that
peppers.
blooming again. You want to
Yes.
help me out, brother? Or chef?
Yes,
He's my chef and my brother. So
that's true. Just don't call me late for dinner. Okay.
and he's, I don't know. Are you taking home these oxtails and all?
Only if you insist.
Okay, good. All right. Oh, a little coriander.
Talk a little. Go ahead.
The quick question, or not rather a question, just but I found it interesting the idea that you guys keep bringing up a community, whether it's a total community and a culture, or what you're trying to create an experience in your own home. How does that influence your actual recipes or what you like to come up with when coordinating different types of meals and entrees and so forth?
Well, in my particular situation, my family, we have some very good, but also competitive cooks, and talk about a spirit of community. And you think about it, no matter how small or how large a home is, the kitchen is usually the heart of the home. Where does everybody congregate to? And even if it's not Thanksgiving or Christmas, if you have folks over, and now people are so thirsty to see each other, they're like, what do you want me to wear? Mask, gloves, masking tape, whatever, just so that they can be in the presence of somebody else. But in answer to your question, it's a combination of things, a culture, as well as just it enhances and improves communication. And we, in my extended family, we like sharing and talking about food and breaking bread and having pitch-ins. But overall, I think that the African-American influence, and I can't say it enough, the African influence in food is underrated, and people don't even realize how many different dishes. Sally Hemings, who was the longtime resident in Thomas Jefferson's home, had a brother named James. He ended up being taken to France and ended up mastering creme brulee. So the heads of state in all of Europe were asking for Sally Hemings, who was, and her brother, who were enslaved people, to make him creme brulee. Even before that, okra, as well as some of the other root vegetables and different things, they continue to be a part of our diet. I don't know if you've had peanut butter soup. That's another thing that has been brought to us from the African continent. I love peanut butter. Sometimes I'm not willing to wait for it to be made into a soup.
All right, so carrot fries. I'm gonna cook these carrots just a little bit, little oil, a little butter. And because they're gonna be fries, we're gonna cook them, but we're gonna cook them until they're al dente. Al dente is a term that most culinarians know. In simple terms, it means to cook until it's firm to the bite. So we don't wanna necessarily, especially our vegetables, if we cook our vegetables until they're mush, then we've lost a lot of the nutritional value. So I would say medium heat right now is more than enough. And this should take about, again, I believe in, there's some things that we're going to cook in the kitchen that are going to take significant periods of time, but I like things that don't take a long time in the kitchen. So these carrots are done. And then what's a way to make carrots fun? Well, how about we make a sauce for it? So I'm going to turn the heat all the way down now.
Which one do you want?
And we're going to add a little bit more of each spice. So I'd like a little bit more of the cumin.
Okay.
A little bit more of the coriander. After this cools down, we're
You
going
want it,
to
yeah.
go ahead, go right ahead in there. Jump on in there, chef.
You want cardamom as well?
Yep, absolutely.
This is a spice I
Yes,
recommend
chef.
and encourage you to really start experimenting with. Cardamom. It just adds flavor and you can't explain it. It's kind of an it factor.
Thank you.
So if you have the cardamom that's floral and the cumin that's smoky, are those good pairings? Or-
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. In fact, if you look at a lot of the recipes, particularly some of the European recipes, and people are beginning to, again, back to the pandemic, people are buying out and have become dyed-in-the-wool foodies now, and people are cooking at home more than they have. How about those of you in the room with us tonight? How many of you are cooking more at home as a result? Are you enjoying doing it? Are you doing it from recipes? Are you just winging it? Okay.
I believe in my own talent, Chef.
Okay. Those of you out here in Zoom land, how many of you, can we see a show of hands? Are you experimenting more by preparing things at home for you, your family, and experimenting with your children, your spouse, and your neighbor, whoever? All right.
All right, so
Chef, I did actually have another question for both of you.
yes, which
So
one?
we know that a lot of these new spices create more ideas, create more experiences, create more adventures, and they also help us stay away from things like sodium. What are some other nutritional benefits of some of the spices and some of the and like the garlic and what's not that you're using with some of your with your recipes?
Well, if you can think back throughout history, spices were used or bartering for lots of things. So, a lot of some countries had textiles and fabrics, while other countries may have had herbs and spices, and they did a lot of bartering and trading. But a lot of the medication, I believe, personally, I've experienced it where food is actually, especially the herbs and spices, are the medicine for our body. They help with a lot of things like arthritis, rheumatism, people that have vision problems, heart problems, or they just really, really help a lot. So I'm going to add a little bit more oil to this and let it cook a little bit.
Even with some of the invasive diseases, you think about the holistic doctors are treating people with herbs, spices, and I mean marijuana, the hemp, and people use smoke therapy. So in response to your question, yes, I personally believe that garlic as well as some of the spices help you with regularity. They help you with, even if you have sinus trouble and difficulty. And if you are open to it, people could probably take a lot less prescription medication if they would do more natural things and eat in, what's that big word, moderation, as well as increase their level of exercise on a daily basis and get adequate sleep and hydration.
Okay.
Thanks again to our partners for having us, and we want to make sure we continue to pitch and promote the heart healthy aspects of this.
And also, I want to just throw out there, we know that we're all going through tough times, trying times right now. You have to get creative during tough times like that. And, you know, one of the biggest myths that I believe that I hear often is that it takes more money and to have a healthy diet. And that's true if you've made a decision to buy high-end food items. But as you can see tonight, we're showing you how to eat healthy with just basic food ingredients that are going to help with all of your nutritional needs. From the carrots, today, this particular recipe has fresh parsley, but you could use dried. It has fresh cilantro, olive oil, garlic, and crushed red pepper. So you're getting a little bit of a earthy taste to it. I put a few onions in here just because I don't believe in waste. And this is, let me taste. Very good. Okay, here, use the fork.
I'm gonna take some out to the audience out there.
Exactly. Good.
Heather,
Looks like we're having a little momentary technical difficulty here. We'll get them reconnected.
are they connected?
So are we?
Yes,
Are
we're
we still,
back.
are we good? Any questions out there from us about any of the Black History meals that I prepared tonight, or any general culinary questions in general? I'd be more than happy to. It's Q&A. Oh, wow. That's a good question. So,
If you didn't hear, Chef Sam has to name his favorite dish.
so I'm a graduate of Le Cordon Bleu in Ottawa, Canada. So I believe I'm a big fan of classical French cuisine. So I still enjoy nice Chateaubriand, which is the middle part of the beef tenderloin, with either some nice fingerling potatoes or potatoes dauphinoise, and nice ratatouille of vegetables. Potatoes dauphinoise are these nice mashed potatoes that we normally pipe on a plate, and then we add a little Parmesan cheese and paprika and put them back in the oven. And so they're nice and crispy and colorful on the outside, and a little smoke flavor from the paprika, but nice and moist and garlic potatoes on the inside. And then just some nice, well-prepared vegetables that are al dente. So.
I just had another one pop into the queue real quick. Somebody was definitely inspired by seeing you mix oil with butter. They had never seen that before. Can you guys touch on a little bit more of what kind of different fats, vegetable, olive, canola, coconut, butter, and when, how, why?
Okay.
Well, again, back to what he's saying. First of all, I used olive oil, which has a burning higher temp. It's more heart healthy. And many people don't look at it and realize that on the butter, the stick of butter, if you use that, it has a measuring stick on there. So be sure not to overuse. Don't use the half of the stick. Use the tablespoon. That's why they call them recipes. And again, it gives you a flavor that you would not get just with the olive oil. There are other oils that you can use. Some people like peanut oil, but because of the allergies, you're taking a risk unless you know the audience that is eating. Some of the other oils that are out there, they're grapeseed oil. I mean, you can do some wonderful things that are good and heart healthy. And you just have to, again, experiment, try, and see what works for you and what you enjoy. I enjoy it. I have an eclectic palate. I like, my late mother liked to cook a lot of different foods and sample. I might have cuisine from 4 different continents within the week.
Well, on behalf of the Indianapolis Urban League, we have to sincerely appreciate you guys for coming in, preparing such amazing food, sharing such amazing knowledge, and spending your time educating the community on what's delicious, what's healthy, and also what's important. So thank you guys very much. And I will turn it over to the chefs so they can all cheers over a nice glass of milk.
On behalf of the American Dairy Association, winners drink milk. You're all winners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Janet, would you like to fill anybody in on how to get some of this
Well done,
information
guys.
after today?
Absolutely. It looks like there are also a couple more questions here in the
That is
chat,
good.
so we can come back to
I
that in
haven't
just a second. But I will be sending out the recipes, 2 of the recipes that were prepared tonight, and then an additional recipe of using carrots in a smoothie. So I will also be sharing that via email. And there's a question about the book, so hopefully we'll get a quick list of those books put together.
Yes,
that
I'm
were
sorry. That
prepared.
is a fantastic point, Jen. I'm glad you pointed that out. Chefs, I do have one last question for you. We had a participant who wanted to make sure we could go back over those cookbooks one more time. And we know we can get them at the public library, but we just wanted to make sure we focus on the chefs you wanted to celebrate and what books you guys brought.
All right. Leah Chase, one of the world famous, she was not only a chef and restaurant owner, but she was a stateswoman. She brokered a lot of political things with regard to civil rights movement. This is a book that I'm enjoying right now. This is Kwame, and I don't want to butcher his name, African young man, Notes from a Chef. This is from the public library. This is Marcus Samuelson, again, who was adopted by a Swedish family. He's of African descent and has become one of the bad boys of food. He has restaurants all over the globe now, and he's married to a fashion model that's a little taller than him, and he walks like he's 6'9" when he's going down the street. And he probably is going to come out with a line of clothing. He's a classic dresser as well. This is Chef Jeff Henderson, who has become one of the popular chefs. He is probably based at one of the hotels, and he took a walk on the wrong side of the street in the law, but learned how to turn it into a healthy profession. So he's a sought after cook and personality. Sunny Anderson, you've probably seen her. If not, she's a very funny but very informative cook. She enjoys food, and Sunny likes the camera. I don't think she's ever seen a camera that she didn't like, but that's a wonderful one. This was a gift to me. This one is about some of the restaurants. It's by Norma and Carol Darden. It's called Spoon Bread and Strawberry. It's recipes reminiscent back to what you were talking about, the family. And it's my hope that people will get back to sharing family recipes. My family has talked about doing a recipe book. These things happening due to technical difficulty. Sweetie Pies is a restaurant that is in St. Louis, Missouri. And again, I got this, it's a signed cookbook. I'll finish with Anthony Hamilton, who is a musician who's got a book, Cornbread, Fish and Collard Greens. A musician, again, many of the people in the food industry are now, music industry are going with food. Bon appetit.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
See you next month.
We
All righty.
enjoyed it.
Mask up.
Right, I'll go ahead and I'll make sure I note some of these questions, and you've given me some great ideas for future